We are painfully aware that voluntary and constitutionally grounded revocation of these unfortunate and democratically problematic EC appointments by the President is extremely unlikely. However, nothing stops the affected appointees, namely Dr. Peter Piahini and Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani, from voluntarily and honorably resigning from membership of the EC. This will be in the supreme interest of our country's continued democratic progress, election peace and credibility, and indeed the overall national interest. While both Dr. Piahini and Madam Salima Ahmed Tijani meet the generic benchmark qualification stipulated under Article 44(1), that is the same qualification one must satisfy to be a member of Parliament, we believe strongly that, having regard to the independent and non-partisan nature of our Electoral Commission and its mandate, the spirit of the Constitution demands far more in the way of one's suitability to be a member of the EC. We accordingly call on Dr. Peter Piahini and Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani to do the honorable thing and resign.
The conflict of interest is something which always can be dealt with, whether it is written in black and white or not. If somebody feels that somebody has a conflict of interest, and conflict of interest does not necessarily have to be actual, it can be potential. And so it's up to the public to see what they want to do about it. If it's okay with them, why not? That's all I can say. So even CODEO could even take the matter to court if they want to. Yes. All I know is that the only thing I can do is maybe analogy on the bench. If there's somebody you've worked with before, or you're about to maybe serve on a very important committee with, you'll be interacting very actively. If they have a matter before you, it's up to you to decide whether you will recuse yourself or not. For me, I would recuse myself, not because it's likely to influence me, but also in the justice or doing the right thing in public service. A lot of it also depends on public perception. Yes, and I think something to do with national elections and so on, public perception is very important. That's one of the appointments that people have been talking about, plus so many other powers of appointment into certain positions where the relationship, and for it to be a healthy relationship, if there could be another methodology or process or procedure for the appointment, it will be more desirable. Yes, like even the appointment of judges. In most countries these days, it is not a direct nomination and appointment at the very top level. It's not by the head of state. It is through an independent commission, most of whose members are either from certain selected bodies, or they are even voted onto it. Yes, and it's better that way.
Thank you very much, Reverend Fred Digbe, and also CODEO Pumpuni Asante. Dr. Lloyd Amoy is still with us, and I'll begin with Reverend Fred Digbe because we hardly hear him speak publicly to the media on matters such as this. Now, the second video and the third video you watched, belong to one of the appointees who have actually been sworn in, Dr. Apiahene. And you heard him speak. He had actually been contributing to media discussions representing the NPP. The NPP appear to suggest that they don't exactly know him, but that's a big lie. They know him. He has actually been, he says it by his own say-so in some of these videos, that he, together with the Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Chiayebua, represented the party during elections at the EC in the Borough region, or Sunyani, so to speak. And as we are learning, he was also a rep for the regional chairman's election or so. So there is no doubt that he is actually a through and through NPP person. So the questions being raised is that the president's appointment doesn't seem to respect have a sense of national interest. How about Hajia Salima? Hajia Salima, the connection that has been made so far has been to her husband, Sheikh TB Bamba, who is a former MCE under the NPP regime and former MP and Ghana's ambassador to Saudi Arabia until 2001. As we understand, he's supposed to be still, who is the one to Nigeria? I think we need to check that. We've heard something to that effect. And then her sister is current CEO of Maslock. And this sister also is running for elections, has indicated, according to a Daily Guide report, that she's going to contest the 2024 elections, at least for MP in the area. The husband was he first national vice chairman of the NPP, Sheikh Bamba, when Jacob Echebe Lamte and others were in the leadership, according to the NPP's own publication that lists him as national first vice chairman at a certain particular time. Now, Dr. Fred Digbe, thanks once again. So you are saying this is totally wrong. It dents the image of the Electoral Commission. It blights their independence and neutrality. But the president would have taken this list to the Council of States, and the Council of States would have done its work and approved it. And as we know, appointments, national security also does some work over appointments to flag certain issues. All of this would have been done. So at the level of the president, at the level of the Council of States, they are satisfied that these people are okay. Why do you insist that this is wrong?
Newsfile viewers and listeners enjoy. We come out strongly because, let me just go back to what you just said, assuming that all these functionaries may have done their work. Why would they come up with such a recommendation to the president? One of the illnesses of our society is the reluctance of people who have the right information to give that right information to those in authority when they think something is at stake, either their own position or the name, or when they see that this is the thing that the appointing officer wants, they'll do it. Only very few can stand and say, no, this is wrong, and I'm willing to pay the price for it. So assuming they even did, they may have come up with a recommendation like that. Now, if they did and they came out with this recommendation, which probably therefore means that the president was misled, assuming that is true, the videos that are in the public domain that are being played now are so clear, so glaring, that if the president is so minded and people around him are so minded to listen to these tapes and hear what is being said by Dr. Pierre, the pronouns he uses, inclusive one, we. He's not talking at some objective something, making a academic argument. He's a key player, comparing with other governments and other regimes, and say this thing must be worrying again. If as a lawyer or with lawyers around you, you know the clear specifications of the Constitution, you know the history of the EC, you know the critical role they play in our election administration, and you possibly know how their ratings are plummeting. That should be worrying to you as a Democrat who should see this as one of the key pillars of democracy. Let me take the Hajia one, for instance. I think we mentioned it, but the former Chief Justice also helps us. Conflict of interest should not only be real, should be perceived. And all the people who are around her, we can see clearly, or we can hear clearly what her pedigree is. So is that why she has come up for nomination? Possibly so, but if not, and all these things are again in the public domain, they themselves must see that, no, we do not do ourselves justice by flouting all the rules of Ghana in the minds of right-thinking people of the public. Somebody may appoint us, but we live with ourselves, we live in a community, and we live for posterity to judge us about the decisions we made. Clearly, that is not in the interest of our Constitution, normal practice, and what Ghanaians desire to see in our electoral management body.
Just hold on a second for me. Dr. CODEO Pumpuni Asante, thank you for your time. Now, you, like the CODEO, have been referring to the Afrobarometer report that tells us how the EC's image has been plummeting and getting even worse, and there is a need to do something about it. Is this your suggestion that the president is unaware of what is going on? The president will know. Is it your suggestion that the Council of State is unaware? They will know that this is going on. Is it your suggestion that the party that would have been at the forefront of, leading these people to the president for appointment would not have known about this?
Good afternoon. Good morning, and thank you, Samson. I think the president acts on behalf of the people of Ghana. The Council of State, all those institutions are supposed to act in the public interest. I don't think anybody will contest the assertion that electoral integrity, the sustenance of our democracy are all very, very key, components of our governance architecture. That's something that we have to preserve. So if the president acts in ways that threaten that objective, something that underlines our ability to develop for the polity to have stability. I think as right-thinking Ghanaians, as election observers, as people who are interested in securing that process and making that process, as clean as possible, should be out there raising those concerns. We thought we could get an opportunity, like it happened the last time with Madam Jibensa, where the nomination actually was advertised. And then there was this indication that the president was now going to consult the Council of State. And we did put out, our concerns that the consultation was not broad enough. And we thought that if you want to get cross-party buy-in, you want to sort of remove this air of, partiality and so on of the Electoral Commission, you need to fix the process of constituting the Electoral Commission. And we did raise those concerns, and it was not heeded the last time. But this time, all we heard was people being sworn in. So there was not even an opportunity to put out the names. I'm sure all these videos and social media postings would have come out, and maybe the Council of State and all those individuals who are part of the process of making the appointment would have stepped back. So we are in a situation where the appointment has been made, and that's where we come in. So we don't know what the president knows, but after the appointment, certainly all these things have come out, and we need to be out there to let the president know that this step is not going to help anybody. It doesn't help the NPP. It doesn't help any political party. It threatens all of us and the stability of this state. So that's the only approach that we can take. We are coming at it at late because that's the situation we have been put in. So I think for me, the MPP should really rethink and step back. I will give them the benefit of the doubt that this is a mistake. They did not probably calculate the implications of what they were doing.
Well, no, the MPP doesn't think. The MPP doesn't think the way you are thinking. At least for its representatives, spokespersons that we have engaged on this matter. The last time we had the discussion on this show, and you heard them, they said, "Look, you are trying to bring up what is not necessary. The guy is qualified. The fact that he has any, relationship with the NPP." Is inconsequential. Of course, they deny the closeness of his relationship in the NPP. They deny that, but we know the evidence is just overwhelming that it's untenable how anybody would try to deny these things, because the gentleman himself cannot deny what it is. So they don't think the way you are thinking.
The issue is not
what can be done?
Yeah. The issue is not competent. I mean, I in my own estimation, having been involved in this process for so long a time, I have to say that for me, seriously, competence would, is something that we also have to factor in later on. But the most fundamental issue is about neutrality. We are talking about an independent electoral commission. The Constitution has worked backwards, forward, left, right, to create a system of checks and balances that ensure that neutrality is protected. It is the only institution within the Constitution where the Constitution requires the Council of State to advise the President, not consult. So why would the framers of the Constitution go through all these things to set up this model? Because the Electoral Commission is the one that referees competition between political parties. So at the base of it is the process of selecting, who governs the country, and it's political parties that are competing. So if you say partisanship is not relevant, then why doesn't the MPP put their general secretary on there? Because it's the same. Right?
How will you respond? How will you respond to those who say, how about even the court, even the apex court, the Supreme Court? There are people who have been known to have been members of a party on both sides, or even other parties, political parties, who actually attempted or contested elections on the ticket of these parties, who have eventually become judges in our courts. So what are you talking about?
Well, no, but I'm sure something. I'm not the only person that have raised this issue, or anybody who has raised this issue. That matter has also been raised by other citizens of this country, and Reverend David is very right that the thing we do here in this country is to play ostrich. People sit there and observe things going wrong, and then later on, when things are difficult to resolve, then we are all screaming. But at that time, the damage has already been done. So this is, when something is blatantly wrong, sometimes I don't understand why we even go in circles. But the person, as the former Chief Justice said, she will recuse herself, or because if a party matter came before any of those judges, of course, even by the rules of courts, that person, somebody would have a grounds to challenge that person sitting on the case. Just like if the person had familiar relations that were involved in on the matter, they would have grounds. So it's the same issue. I don't think you separate that from this one. But the peculiarity,
Doc, in the courts, when it comes to the judges, the question of perception is not held. When it comes to the judges, when it comes to the judges, the actual is important in upholding a decision to say a judge should recuse themselves. But Justice Sophia Akufu was saying for herself, if she found herself in such a situation, she would recuse herself. There are judges who do that. A matter comes before them, and they take the view that they have had some relation, or a party in the process is related somehow or some way, and they themselves, tell the people that I want to recuse myself, and they recuse themselves. I've had a judge ask me that he wants to recuse himself, and I say no. I know his relationship with the process. However, I want him to sit because I could trust his independence and his impartiality. So yes. Can this also apply here, where matters come up and these people will say they'll recuse themselves?
No. It doesn't apply, and I'll explain shortly. But just on the matter of the judges, you see, it's why are the judges making these choices? Because the perception of partiality is one that is not only to the judge, but to the entire judicial system. If people perceive that because of these kinds of interests, you are making judgments, even if what they are saying is not true, but that is what it communicates because of these entanglements that the judges have. It destroys the integrity of the whole judiciary. So if you are getting these cases, that's why there's a lot of effort to try to deal with perceptions, not just for the individual judge that is determining a case, but for the institution itself. On the matter of the Electoral Commission, it's even more pronounced. Partisanship is even more pronounced. Because just imagine if you had Kotoko and Haas going to play, and the referee, the referee's brother or the referee's whatever, is in one of the teams or something like that. Do you think that even if the referee is the most, celebrated impartial referee, the other side will feel happy? Because we are talking about a referee that, oversees competition between parties. So partisanship so there are two ways if you look at the electoral models across Africa. There are two ways, and that's not just Africa. There are two ways you deal with it.
Okay.
It's either you have an IPAC-type electoral commission where all the parties are represented and they can all have a say in how the electoral commission is determined.
All right.
But if you go the independent way, you can't have partisanship there.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. CODEO Pumpuni Asante of the CDD. I'm going back to Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe, and then we'll have Lloyd Amwa share his views. We have heard, professors like Ransford Jampo. We have heard Dr. Osai Kwapong. They all refer to the decrease in the ratings, the trust ratings for the Electoral Commission from 48% in 2004 to 10% in 2022. And they say this could further decrease if these events are not well taken care of. This is a major point that you take on, but they also look at this. But on the question of your appeal, they say appealing to them to resign may not happen. So how are you going to go around it? We know that the trust issues came to a head when Charlotte Osei's issue came up. I just refer quickly to the U.S. Country Report on Human Rights Practices for 2019. United States Department, the thing that they issue regularly. It said, and I'm quoting from that report, it says, the June 2018 ouster of the Electoral Commission chairperson and the president's subsequent filling of the EC with persons considered to be biased in favor of the ruling party raised questions about whether the body might be used to stifle voter registration in areas of opposition support. The EC's effort to register voters and conduct a December 2018 referendum on new regions met with mixed reactions and some allegations of malpractice. The technical challenges hampered the EC's limited voter registration, among others, pages 13 and 14 of that report. So it doesn't look like you may get these people resign, despite all of these issues. Yet your call is for a resignation.
Yes. There's always a beginning. And we hope with the preponderance of evidence. This will not be the first case where there's so much overwhelming evidence. There are many other steps that will be taken, and the coalition partners can look at it. But putting it out there, we think the moral argument, the preponderance of evidence, putting it out there, will help these qualified Ghanaians know that there are other places they can serve the nation in their capacity as people who have political affiliation. Nobody is blaming them for their partisan affiliation. But to serve on the executive, on the EC, when it is clearly stated in black and white, when they can read it, when they know the role of the EC, they're just playing back to them and say, please step down and do the honorable thing. And posterity would reward you for being the people who did the right thing. There are other options. Like I said, we had the Chief Justice and others have suggested other things to us. I cannot say them now because this, mind you, I don't want to tout the group of people who are talking, but I'm talking about CODEO, talking about Star Ghana, and you are talking about IDEX, CFI, who've been involved in this. And there are many others who are just, we love this country, and we see that where we are headed, not just in this case, but many other cases, and particularly where we are now, we are on a very dangerous ground, and we should not sacrifice one of the only things that has held us together, peaceful elections, where we can develop, where we can even go to IMF 17 times and develop and do things. If we throw this one away also, what else? And if people are able and they are mindful to resign peacefully, I think it will be a feather in their own caps.
There are some who say, yes, credible voices like yours, good, but will not be good enough because, look, the gentleman and the lady are clearly aware of their situation and yet accepted these appointments. Those who appointed them, those who endorsed them, approved them, all of them would have become aware of these things and went ahead and put them there. So maybe you should be thinking about what the CJ is talking about more seriously. The last time we discussed this year, the scripture about avoiding the appearance of evil, not evil itself, was pronounced. But if you are going to the court, there's a suggestion that you could look at the provision in Article 296, which requires that the discretionary power of the president, and it says that the discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. The exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capricious, or biased, whether by resentment, prejudice, or personal dislike, and shall be in accordance with due process of law. And you are also being referred to Article 297 of the Constitution about the conduct of public officers, among others. No, Article 284 about the conduct of public officers, which gives an idea how to conduct yourself. A public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicts or is likely to conflict with the performance of his functions. So you should be thinking more about, a formidable process rather than the persuasion.
Thank you for drawing our attention to whatever else is available. Like we said, we didn't want to go, we went public to give the key players. You see, sometimes you can say things that would even, quote unquote, damage the reputation of our state and national institutions. Because like you said from the beginning, it is assumed that national security is assumed that the Council of State, and for that matter, the President's advisors, would have done due diligence and passed this report on to them. Okay, fine. We are just assuming that that work was not done. And so let us now throw this one in there. It does not mean we are not aware of other possible ways of dealing with it. There are precedents for this. We are aware of it. The coalition can trigger all of these things. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt, rather than coming out and, excuse my language, start bashing this institution and personnel. No. But when persuasion fails, like you said, I will not finish that sentence. There are other means that can be applied. And when we cross that river, this week of action or inaction, then we'll see where we'll take it to as a coalition when we gather to see what our next steps can be.
By Article 297, the power to appoint includes the power to remove. Why are you not asking the president to simply revoke these appointments, but pleading with the appointees to rather resign?
That's a very useful input. Like I said, I mean, we will regather and look at some of the other options that we have.
Okay. Reverend Fred Digbe, thank you so very much for your time. Let's now bring in Dr. Lloyd Amoah. And Dr. Lloyd Amoah, what do you say is the way out? Do you feel this is okay, we can manage, it's okay, we shouldn't be too bothered about it? Like the president sought to preempt the process or this debate. He began by saying elections are not about those who count. It's about those who vote. So it doesn't matter whoever is put there, they can't do anything. And we have heard people in the MPP now tout that. They say it's not about the person in there. And the question people will ask is, are they forgetting themselves? How they, like the US report said, Charlotte Osei was literally hounded out of the place. She was ousted. If being there, and having any, inclinations, partisan, will not do anything, why did we go through that process, which led to Jean Mensa now being there?
Yeah, I mean, something, I think you raised the point, and your questions are relevant. What we see, obviously, is a deeply worrying moral deficit that in many ways the party, the MPP, is reflecting, and which is also being shown in the president and the choice that he has made. There's something about the night, about the issue, and we all know this. So the Charlotte Osei matter, and even going back early, when we decided to move into the constitutional era, 92, when the constitution was adopted, and then 93 when it came into force. All these questions of who becomes EC chair and the rest of them came up. But even historically, when you go way back in the Nkrumah era and all of that, the MPP, which claims essentially that it has roots with and connections with the PP, UP, LNM, and all of that, these are questions that were raised in the Nkrumah era, where the case was made strenuously and stridently that Nkrumah was partying state institution with party folk and the rest of them. A typical example was the cocoa processing company, where Jim, who was a CPP man, was running the place and reportedly sending money to the CPP for elections and all of that. So it's worrying that lessons do not seem to have been learned on these issues. The EC is a tinderbox, really. So when you were talking to Dr. Asante, Reverend Digbe, you raised the issue of the Supreme Court and all of that, and try to link that to whether a person's partisanship does not also play out in those institutions. Well, they do, but the EC is a particularly sensitive institution. And going into the next election, there's a sense in which there's this breaking the age and all of that. And the stakes are essentially very, very, very high for there to be any whiff of signs that those in power want to maintain their power by any means necessary. And I think this is what these appointments clearly throw us into a rather difficult and potentially, easily inflammable situation regarding the elections next year.
So these appeals, if you listen to the language of CODEO, they seem to be so sure that the president will not exercise his power to revoke the appointment, because they said that is almost an impossibility. Therefore, the appointees should be the ones who should rather exercise their discretion to resign in the national interest.
On the contrary, there's a sense in which I see the argument. But as I indicated in my prefatory take, the moral sensitivity is also weighing on the president. And I think that he should take the decision. The appointees also have a role to recuse themselves, from a moral, angle. But failing which, I think the president can easily take his pen and say, look here, I appointed you, I want to disappoint you. So go home. And in that sense, I think the balance really weighs more on the president. This is a man who's been in the trenches for decades.
Okay.
We know him. His fourth case, 31st December, as a holiday, Rawlings' choices. He's been in the trenches.
That's
so
right.
He should know, and know that this clearly cannot hold. He knows it in the deepest recesses of his mind as a political operator.
All right.
So I think I would put it squarely on him to just take the green pen and revoke these, obviously, odious appointments.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lloyd George Edu Amwa, with the Center for Asian Studies, University of Ghana, Legon. Reverend Dr. Fred Digbe is with the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. Dr. Pumpuni Asante, Director, Advocacy and Policy Engagement of the CDD. I've heard the questions being asked. In Kenya today, the opposition have literally forced the government to pause and agree on something that has to be done with their election body. And guess what? In their election body, the chairperson or whoever is heading is not appointed by the president. They appoint one from among themselves once they are constituted, and they have a nice way of doing so. The last time we discussed this, I asked the questions about, I think we're discussing how the minority MPs were voting to approve the ministers by the president when they had come publicly to say that the public wanted them disapproved. And I asked the question, are they really, a viable, a formidable opposition? Are they a responsible opposition? Are they doing their work? Maybe they should think about it. What exactly are they doing about some of these things? It bothers all of us, but what are they doing as an opposition? Except criticizing the clergy, they are not speaking enough. Criticizing some civil societies, they are not criticizing enough. What are they doing? This is CODEO that brought up all of these, that is bringing up the mass of, this, as it were, support to discuss this matter. So I think the opposition should also be asking itself very important questions about how it is doing its business as an opposition. You just organize one press conference, you make a comment, and the end of it is gone. That's it. Nothing gets happened, and you are okay with it. All right. This show, as always, is brought to you by this kind of sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go, Ashas University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons. Obstacle Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider. For 31 years, My Way Insurance. Dial *165# on MTN to join Duraplus. How you get your water matters. Remember, where Duraplus goes, water flows. DBS Industries, Roofing, Papa Fie. Rehoboth Social Housing. Your housing dreams become reality. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., join me and my very special guest, His Lordship Alexander Osei Tutu, on our weekly legal clinic, The Law Show. Join us tomorrow. We are talking about intermeddling, dealing with the property of the dead, part 2. The Supreme Court has given a decision on that. We are dissecting it. So join us tomorrow, 2 p.m. on this same network. Our special guest is Lordship Justice Alexander Osei Tutu. Will be joined by Albert Jemfi. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini.